After 10 years of being excluded from family reunions, I thought the ache would dull. It didn't. Every summer, photos filled my feed, everyone smiling in matching t-shirts, kids lined up for games, my parents' proud speeches. My name was never on the guest list. My seat was never saved. This year was no different. When I drove by the park out of curiosity, my sister spotted me. Her voice carried across the crowd. "Get out, you're not family." Laughter followed. Heads turned. I felt like I was 16 again, standing small while they pushed me aside. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply left. But life has a strange sense of balance. 10 years of silence, and then one knock on my door. My name is Natalie Cross, I'm 34. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. What happens when the outcast becomes the one with the keys? It was a Tuesday morning when I heard the buzz of my gate. Security cameras flashed the impossible. My parents, my sister, cousins who had called me pathetic, all lined up outside like petitioners. My mansion's white stone walls rose behind me, the house they never imagined I could own. I opened the door calmly, their voices rising in nervous chatter. One by one, their smiles faltered as they took in the marble floors, the sweeping staircase, the quiet hum of a home built without them. Their faces drained of color, eyes darting from chandelier to window to me, as if searching for a punchline. But there was none. And what I did next was something they never expected. They stood in a cluster on my doorstep, shifting uncomfortably. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Mom cleared her throat, her voice unsteady. "Natalie, we thought we should visit. It's been too long." Too long. As if 10 years of exclusion had been an oversight, like forgetting to send a Christmas card. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Last time I saw you, you told me I wasn't family. Remember?" Dad's jaw tightened. "That was just a figure of speech. You're making it sound harsher than it was." A laugh slipped out before I could stop it. A figure of speech? Funny, because it felt real enough to keep me out of your lives for a decade. My sister finally piped up, trying for charm. "We didn't mean it like that. Look, you've obviously done well for yourself. We're proud of you." Her eyes, though, betrayed her, darting over my foyer, calculating every detail. I let the silence stretch, the sound of the fountain in my entryway filling the space. They weren't here for reconciliation. They were here because they'd finally realized I had something they wanted. "Why are you really here?" I asked. They exchanged glances, shifting like guilty children. Finally, Dad muttered, "We've had some financial setbacks." There it was. The truth, dressed in shame. I stepped aside, gesturing them in. Their relief was palpable as they shuffled past me, wide eyes drinking in every corner of the mansion. But they didn't realize that letting them in wasn't surrender. It was strategy. Because for the first time in my life, they were in my house on my terms. And I had no intention of playing their game. They sat stiffly in my living room, perched on the edge of leather sofas they'd once said were too classy for someone like you. The irony wasn't lost on me. Mom looked around nervously before saying, "It's a beautiful home, Natalie. You've done so well." I poured myself a glass of water, letting the silence weigh. "I did," I said simply. "Without any of you." My sister forced a laugh, her hands twisting in her lap. "Don't be like that. We're family. Family forgives." I set the glass down with a sharp click. Family doesn't exclude one of their own for 10 years and then show up when the money runs out. Dad's face hardened. "We just need some help, Natalie. A loan. Things will get better soon. You've always been the practical one. You understand." I studied him. The same man who once told me I was dead weight. The same man who clapped his hand on my shoulder at 18 and said, "Don't expect much from life. You're not the star of this family." Now here he was, eyes down, voice softer. I walked to the dining table and pulled out a drawer. Inside was a leather-bound folder. I placed it on the table and opened it slowly. Stacks of documents, contracts, proof of ownership. Their eyes widened. This house. These cars. The businesses that keep them running, all mine. And not a single cent came from you. The color drained from my sister's face. Mom whispered. Natalie, we didn't know. I met her eyes, steady. Of course you didn't. You never cared enough to look. And for the first time, I saw fear in their faces. Not of losing money, but of losing me. The silence in the room was brittle, like glass about to shatter. My father cleared his throat, his pride fighting against desperation. We made mistakes, Natalie. But you can't hold on to the past forever. Families forgive. Families support each other. I raised an eyebrow. Support each other? You told me to get out. You laughed while I stood alone, year after year. Where was that support then? My sister leaned forward, her voice sharper. You're exaggerating. We never meant to hurt you. But look at you now, you don't need us. Why keep punishing us?
Punishing.
The word rolled off her tongue like I was some villain pulling puppet strings. I laughed softly. I'm not punishing you.
I'm just not rescuing you.
There's a difference. Their eyes darted around my home again. The crystal chandelier above, the abstract paintings lining the walls, the quiet hum of comfort they'd never expected me to own. Mom finally whispered, We're losing the house, Natalie. Your father's debts, they've piled up. We thought maybe. She stopped, shame tightening her throat. And there it was. The real reason for this sudden visit. Not love. Not regret.
Need.
I stood, letting my footsteps echo against the marble floor. You excluded me when it was convenient. Now you include me because it's convenient. Do you hear yourselves? Their silence told me they did. I walked to the window, staring at the garden outside, calm and steady. For 10 years, I begged for a seat at your table, I said softly. Now you're begging for one at mine. When I turned back, their faces were pale. And that was just the beginning. They shifted uneasily on the sofa, the weight of my words pressing down harder than any chandelier above their heads. My sister finally broke, her tone brittle. Natalie, fine. We were wrong. But you're rich now. Isn't that the point of money? To help family? I tilted my head, studying her carefully. Family? That's what you call me now. Interesting choice of words, considering you screamed the opposite in a public park. Her cheeks flushed. That was years ago. 10, I corrected. 10 years you never called, never texted, never asked how I was. And suddenly, when the bank threatens foreclosure, I'm family again. Dad rubbed his temples, exasperated. You're twisting everything. We didn't mean it literally. You know how families fight. No, I said firmly. Families fight and then reconcile. What you did was erase me. There's a difference. The silence that followed was suffocating. Their eyes darted toward the folder still sitting on the dining table, as though the documents inside might sprout wings and save them. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice trembling. Please, Natalie. We're drowning. Help us and we'll make things right. I leaned forward, my tone low and calm. Do you know what's interesting about drowning? Sometimes the person who pulls you under the water is the same one who begs you to save them. Their faces fell, the truth landing heavy. I stood, smoothing my dress, and let the pause stretch. You don't need saving. You need consequences. And in that moment, the power shifted completely. Not because I had money, but because I finally had the strength to say no. The room felt smaller now, the air thick with everything left unsaid. My sister crossed her arms, trying to mask fear with defiance. So what, Natalie? You'll just watch us lose everything? What kind of person does that to their own blood? I met her gaze evenly. The kind of person who learned that blood isn't a free pass to betrayal. Dad slammed his hand on the armrest. We gave you everything. The laugh that escaped me was sharp, humorless. Everything? You gave me years of silence, humiliation, and locked doors during reunions. Do you want me to show you what I gave you? I gestured toward the folder on the table. Receipts, debts I cleared, checks you cashed without thanks. That's everything. Mom started to cry then, soft and desperate. Natalie, please. We're not perfect, but we're your family. Doesn't that mean something? Her words might have broken me once. Not anymore. I leaned against the mantel, my voice steady. Family means belonging. You stripped that from me the moment you told me to leave.
10 years is a lifetime, Mom.
A lifetime where you chose to erase me. The clock ticked loudly, filling the silence they couldn't. Their faces told me they finally understood. They weren't here out of love. They were here out of desperation. I straightened, my decision final. You came to my door expecting the same Natalie who once begged for scraps. She doesn't live here anymore. Their eyes widened, panic flashing. And in that moment, I realized I didn't need revenge. I already had something better.
Control.
They were unraveling before me. My sister's voice grew sharp, cutting through the silence. If you turn your back on us, Natalie, you'll regret it. You think money makes you untouchable? Wait until people hear how cold you really are. Her words slid off me like rain on glass. Let them hear, I said calmly. They already heard your laughter when you told me I wasn't family. Funny how memories tend to echo louder than gossip. Dad tried another angle, his voice softening. We can fix this. We'll invite you back to everything. Reunions, holidays, you'll have your seat again. Just help us now. There it was, the bribe wrapped in fake warmth. The very thing I had craved for years being dangled like a carrot on a string. But I no longer hungered for it. I walked to the wall of windows, pulling the curtains back. The garden stretched outside, perfectly manicured, a reflection of discipline and care.
My discipline.
My care. I turned to them. I don't need your seat. I built my own table. And the irony? It's bigger than yours ever was. Mom sobbed openly now, her hands wringing in her lap. Natalie, don't do this. We're family. We made mistakes, yes, but you can't just erase us. I took a deep breath, my voice calm but final. I don't need to erase you. You erased yourselves the moment you told me to get out. Their silence was louder than any scream. For the first time in my life, they looked small, powerless in the mansion they had never imagined would belong to me. And I had never felt taller. They left in silence. No hugs, no promises to call, no sudden change of heart. Just the sound of the front door closing behind them, their shadows swallowed by the evening light. I stood alone in the foyer, the echo of their footsteps fading into nothing. For years, that emptiness would have broken me.
But now?
It felt like peace. I walked back to the dining table, the folder of documents still spread out like a ledger of truth. One by one, I gathered the papers and tucked them away. Not because I needed proof anymore, but because the proof had already done its work. They had seen it. They had seen me. In the past, I'd begged for scraps of validation, thinking that if I gave enough, I'd finally earn my seat at their table. But tonight had taught me something I should have known long ago. I didn't need their table. I had built my own. I poured myself a glass of wine and stepped out to the balcony. The city stretched out beneath me, lights twinkling against the night. Somewhere out there, my family was huddled together, not in laughter, but in fear of bills, of consequences, of life without me to carry the weight. And maybe that was the justice I had been waiting for. Not revenge, not cruelty, just absence. They would have to face themselves now. Without me as their scapegoat, their babysitter, their invisible wallet. Without me, the cracks in their foundation would finally show. I raised my glass toward the skyline, whispering, to freedom. Because freedom wasn't loud. It didn't require shouting or slamming doors or grand speeches. Freedom was walking away calmly, letting their own words haunt them, letting silence be the mirror they couldn't escape. And in that silence, I found my place. Not as their outcast, not as their forgotten daughter, but as the woman who had finally stepped out of their shadow and into her own light.